Dr. Nicholas Ng is an ethnomusicologist and musician specializing in Australia-Chinese musical exchange. He was Associate Lecturer in Music at the Australian National University and a Research Fellow at Queensland Conservatorium before joining the Chinese Music Ensemble program at Sydney Conservatorium of Music. When I first met Nick 老师, I just know him as an Erhu teacher at the Chinese Music Ensemble. As I got to know him deeper and deeper, I know him as a researcher and educator in Australia Chinese Institute for Arts and Culture. Besides all this, he's a very active Chinese music performer, and since that, I gradually got a chance to collaborate with him doing small gigs and find more about his unique personality and his inclusive mind.
Well, I play Chinese instruments, so often in the past and even now, they will think of me as a Chinese musician, and then they'll ask me to perform, say, traditional music, or they might ask for the instrument in a contemporary music context or in an intercultural context, so working with other cultures. And I'm very, very happy to represent Chinese culture, but as you know, Chinese culture is very diverse, and it's also what people think is Chinese, you know, what they think is Chinese, what I think is, what you think is Chinese, what actually is Chinese culture. And I'm often a little bit hesitant about some of the ideas about Chinese, say they think my instrument is ancient, and that's something that I find a bit uncomfortable with because it's not that ancient, but I think it's the perception that Chinese music, all of Chinese music is very ancient, and that's something I like to tell people about, that actually a lot of the music's quite modern, you know, and that it's on a traditional instrument, but then even our instruments are not that traditional anymore because they've evolved over time. So that's one of the things I like to educate people about if I get the chance.
The conversation between Dr. Nicholas Ng and I actually started with something personal. That idea was emerged when I talked with another girl who plays xiaoruan at the CME. She said she's doing piano major at the con, so she met lots of students who play classical Western instruments, whereas she found the general personalities or characteristics between people who play Chinese instruments and Western instruments are so different. In her words, those students who play Chinese instruments are always kind to people, very easygoing, very soft and gentle. I was quite surprised when I listened to her conclusion, but then I immediately thought of Nick 老师, who was always kind and generous towards everyone. Does the development of his personalities have anything to do with his experience of playing Chinese instruments? During my interview, Dr. Nicholas shared a story of his music journey with us.
That's right, yeah. I started off on piano, and then for me it was a cultural shift from European music, and also I grew up singing in the church, so I sang a lot of ancient church music. That is very old, that music is. Even our notation is the old notation, not the modern wuxianpu. It's actually only got 4 lines, and the notes are square. So, and that is from a long time ago, say, 1,000 years ago, that notation. So I grew up with that music. And then I chose Erhu when I was about in my teenage years because I was majoring on piano, but I had a breakdown. So I had an emotional, mental problem. And so I couldn't play piano for 1 whole year. So during that time, I was recovering from that. And my music teacher in high school asked me to attend a concert in Town Hall. And it was someone playing the Butterfly Lovers Concerto. She was playing it with Western Orchestra. I never heard that piece before. I never saw Erhu live. So that's when I decided to learn Erhu. I became her student. She's still playing erhu today. She's originally from China. Her name's Chen Xueping. Yeah, and so she was very famous in China, but she moved to Australia in the 80s. And now she has many, many students. She also teaches Guzheng. So she was my first Chinese music teacher. And then from then on, I started learning more and more about Chinese music. And I've learned a lot about it in that the music I first heard I thought was very traditional, but of course Liang Xiao is quite a modern piece, isn't it? But they use a traditional opera tune, so so things like that. I started learning more and more about what Chinese music is, and until today. And I tried to learn more instruments in my spare time, so I like to try a bit of this, a bit of that, as you know.
From the conversation we had, Dr. Nicholas showed me his open mind and inclusive attitude toward music, especially Chinese music. He played so many instruments and had such a vivid experience in learning them, but he never set a border between different instruments and musics. He's like the water, has no shape, but can flow between traditional and contemporary, Eastern and Western. I also asked him, as a performer, do you feel like you're representing Chinese musicians while you're performing? Because when I'm performing, I always feel like I have the responsibility to represent something. And here's his answer.
It depends on the concert.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not performing every day or something like that, but every month or every other month there'll be an invitation to perform, or I might be planning a project, and then sometimes we have funding, sometimes not much funding, but some projects are all about Chinese culture. So for instance, when we did the Chinese Garden Lunar New Year series, that definitely was about China or Chinese culture. Other times I might be involved in something that's more about other things. So the erhu then is just another instrument in the ensemble, and I'm not trying to be Chinese or anything like that. So then in music, there was a time when I was younger when I felt I want to learn more about my Chinese heritage, therefore I will represent Chinese music and as a Chinese person. Now I'm a bit more relaxed about it because I feel, do I need to do that? Because I'm just who I am. I don't have to try to be Chinese, When it's before, I was very conscious, I have to do this has to be Chinese. But now I think I'm interested in the use of the instrument because I like the sound. Doesn't have to be related to China. It's because it's another type of instrument that you can use in a new composition, and it sounds really interesting, and that's why I like the instruments, yes.
From his answer, I think already very close to the answer in my mind. Playing Chinese instruments in Australia or any other countries with the European form of music being considered as the mainstream has already been the proof of something. Because we believe in the beauty of music, in the power of music. Because the beauty of music once touched us, then we have endless passion learning it and promoting it. Because we know that music is a universal language and there shouldn't be border between musicians from different culture. There's no music that should be prioritized than other musics. There are only musics that should be appreciated more.
I'm starting to move away from the cultural identification because I feel, it doesn't, like if you think about, say, like the guitar, it's played everywhere, or the piano is played everywhere. So I would like the erhu to be the same. It can be played in Norway, it can play in Africa, and it doesn't have to mean China, but it's because the instrument is popular. That's what I want.